Hello, everyone. How is everyone today? Happy Thursday. Welcome to True North. I'm Renata Marino. I'm your host. I hope everyone's having a great week. I am here to talk about a very important subject that many of us struggle with, called setting boundaries. And I entitled this, Old Dog, New Tricks. How do we teach old dogs new tricks? As we know, and I'm a dog owner, and I've had my dog for several years, maybe 3 years, and we're still training her. And unfortunately, she's very bright and she picks up things quickly. As my son, my 13-year-old son, he's the main dog trainer in the family. But sometimes it's very difficult to teach a dog new tricks when they've been used to the same routine every day, all day, for year after year after year. It takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of staying consistent. And I want to talk about this analogy when it comes to setting boundaries. I call it new boundaries with old friends. How do we set new boundaries with old friends? The importance of that, how to do it, and the positive outcomes that are results of setting boundaries with people, especially people close to us. So that's what I want to talk about today. And this has a lot to do with our career as well as our personal life. And what I mean by that is this is coming from someone who's a giver. And I'm going to say this. Setting boundaries with people, especially close people in our life, is challenging for those of us who are givers, meaning those of us who love to give, who are very pay it forward, who love being there for everyone, as many people as possible. And typically this can be a detriment for us because we become very drained. And unfortunately, for those of us who are optimistic and think everybody's appreciative, there are people out there that take, and they're just not doing it maliciously, but that's just who they are. And they're not reciprocating the same in return. So we become very depleted. And this is a life lesson that I've learned throughout the years. And I didn't really recognize this pattern in myself until recently, the past couple of years. So I want to be able to relay some advice to help those of you who are givers and are struggling with the ability to set boundaries with existing family, existing friends, whether it's in your personal or professional life, and how I went about doing it. And trust me, it's like when you first start doing it, it's very difficult. And I will say a lot of us who are givers and who have difficulty setting boundaries, a lot of this, and if you do some introspection about your life and your childhood, a lot of this has come from childhood where we were always either the caretaker of the family, the main responsible person, maybe the eldest, the one that kind of took care of everything, that our parents kind of put the onus on us to be the responsible one to take care of the younger kids. Maybe we were parent pleasers and that turned into people pleasers. Maybe we were in relationships where our partners took advantage of our giving nature. This is really detrimental to our own personal health and professional health. And so I want to talk about how to break free from that and not feel guilty that you're being mean, not when you set a boundary. And the way the word boundary sounds very daunting and evil. It actually really isn't. I like to use the term kind boundaries. There is a way to set kind boundaries. It's scary at first, especially when it's with respect to your family, because you don't want to lose your family and you don't want them, you want them to love you. However they treated you in the past, you still want love from them. But a lot of us have to take that risk of setting boundaries. So I want to talk about different things. I can talk about the personal front and the professional front, and I have about 20 minutes. So let's say, let's talk a little bit about the personal front. I'll give you some examples. So in the personal front, the hardest thing I think is setting new boundaries with our parents, and our partners. So let's just talk parents first. I think our family, parents and siblings, I think a lot of times our family is used to us a certain way. For example, and usually this comes from childhood. I mean, I'm the oldest of 3 girls, and I was the responsible one. The halo, the straight shooter, the rule follower, there's just a responsible one. I took care of the business. I took care of business. I was the go-to for handling any kind of hiccup, problem, whatever. Because people could count. My family could count on. They can count on me. I will still be that way. So I think that role as the eldest and the responsible one is carried through into adulthood. And quite honestly, in my case, it's almost like, oh, she can handle it. She doesn't need our help. She's got this. And that's actually very detrimental to a daughter or a son, because it puts a lot of pressure and onus on us. But I think a lot of times when we get older and we're parents, we need, and our parents' age, out of respect, we respect our parents. We're grateful for whatever they did for us, however it was, good or bad. We accept what happened. And then, as parents age, they soften, they change. Everyone has a right to change, to be good, to get better, to apologize, to change. But the past does stay with us. So I think a lot of times if we're given a certain role or treated a certain way, and we change as well, and we don't want to be treated that way anymore, we have to stand up for ourselves. And we can do that in a kind manner. And sometimes that is well received by our parents, and sometimes it's not. And unfortunately, for example, you could say, Mom or Dad, I really don't appreciate what you're saying. You're telling me to get a real job. I am in a real job. I'm doing venture capital, or I'm an entrepreneur. That's not a real, and they're saying, no, that's not a real job according to their generation. Okay. So, you can say in a nice way, I just really would like your support in any capacity. I'm doing my best. This is what I'm doing. I'm sorry you don't see it as a real job, but it is a real job. And you can spend, hours explaining to them that it is a real job, and this is your passion or whatever. And they may not be able to see that, but asking for their respect, asking for their unconditional love, whether or not they say, yes, I understand, I do love you, I want what's best for you, and whether or not they say that then and there, and they still continue to act the same way, you can voice your opinion, and then you have to, I've said this before, distance yourself, or just not engage in an argument. It's really just reaffirming over time your position on something, and not argue. Just say, you know what, I appreciate your opinion, but this is what I'm doing. I'm really happy. You really need, and it's hard because sometimes they can just distance themselves from you, and you have to be willing to take that risk. And quite honestly, they're not. They may step away for a little while, but they're going to come back. They may need time to think about it, and they're going to come back. They're going to love you for you no matter what. It's your life. It's your decision. But again, that first step on speaking up kindly, asking for respect, this is my decision. This is what makes me happy. I'm sorry you don't agree with this. I'm sorry you don't approve, but this is what I want to do. This is where I see my life going. And whether or not they accept that or not, you have to be willing to just feel good, even though it's scary, that you're stating your piece. Whether it's a sibling, whether it's a parent, it's really, really important. And I think, and I actually have talked about this with my younger son, is there's a certain point in time when we're parents and we have children, and there may be teens, where we have to let go a little bit, and we have to let our children set boundaries with us. Right now I'm working with my son about having him be his own self-advocate to me. So if I can't make the assumption that he doesn't want to go, we're going to this Italian restaurant, as an example. We're going to this Italian restaurant. Everybody, come on, we're going. And he needs to be like, Mom, I don't want Italian. Can we do something else? And that's very simple. But it gets even more like, okay, you're going to go to this camp. It's a sports camp. Mom, he can't think that we're not going to listen to him. He needs to say, Mom, I really don't want to do a sports camp. I was thinking more of arts. We need to let our kids start advocating for themselves and not just let us be like, you're doing this. I mean, there's certain things, yes. But again, I think that teaches a child to set boundaries or say, you know what, Mom, I really don't like when you're hugging me. You need to stop doing that in public. That's actually a big one, especially for boys and girls. You're embarrassing me, Mom. Do you mind not talking when all my friends get in the car? Can you just drive? And we need to respect those boundaries or boundaries. So letting our kids speak up and be their own self-advocates actually will allow them to set kind boundaries later in life as adults. If you are a dictator parent and you do not it's your way or the highway, and you raise your kids that way, they will not set boundaries as adults, and people will walk right all over them. And it is a detriment to their own personal health and professional career success. This is something that I've learned. So let's talk about business. I think I've talked to a lot of people about this. It's a lot about career progression, career success, especially when you're entering a new industry. In my case, venture capital, moving from serial entrepreneur to venture capital 3-4 years ago, and really doing the scouting, doing a lot of pro bono work, doing a lot of volunteers, helping founders. I mean, literally working for free for at least 3 years. And I think when you're in a new industry and you're new and you're learning, you're absorbing everything. What happens is your confidence isn't built until you start seeing that like 80% of the people in the industry are used car salesmen. They shouldn't even be what they're doing. I mean, what are they even talking about? Like, you start seeing it. You don't really realize it till later. But if you're smart and you do your homework and you volunteer and you learn, you absorb, you're like a sponge, you start figuring it out. And what happened to me, and I don't want to be so specific, but I started getting taken advantage of by many people in the industry because they saw my worth, they saw my brains, they saw my network, they saw what I could bring to the table, and they saw that they could start leveraging me. And it gets to a point where you start recognizing that they're leveraging you and not giving back anything. And that's when the boundaries need to start happening. That's when you need to kindly call them out and say, you know what, I've done this to a female venture capitalist. I've done this to a male venture capitalist. With the female venture capitalist, I pulled her aside and I said, you know what, I'm really surprised. I've done all these wonderful things for you, gave you all these amazing opportunities, and this is what you're offering me. Crumbs. I said, it's very disturbing. You're supposed to be a woman's advocate, supporting female founders and female fund managers. And look what you've done to me. This is inappropriate. And I'm very upset about it. The kind boundary is calling them out. And, you have to do that. And then, distancing yourself, saying that this is the type of person that I'm not going to be working with. I'm no longer going to be helping this person. You're not going to be mean to the person. You're not going to take any revenge. You just distance yourself. But you have to stand up and be your own self-advocate. And you need to let them know this is uncalled for. Okay, same thing with a male VC. Same thing. When you find out that they're promising all this and not delivering, you call them out. And this is what some of these men in power will do to you. They'll threaten you. They'll say, you know what? I know a lot of people in high places. And fortunately, for those of us who have a very clean record, your response is, I'm not quite sure if I'm comfortable with that response. You can do whatever you want. I have a very clean record. I know a lot of people in high places, people who trust me, I have a very clean record. You can go tarnish my name however you want. I know you're very upset because I called you out, but this is not how I do business. And you walk away. And again, I always say this. I do a workshop on networking buckets. Those two people that have just dropped down to my lowest networking bucket. They're no longer on my networking list. It's like the naughty list with Santa. But again, you need to be your own self-advocate. You need to speak up. You can't just ghost and walk away. No. You need to state, this is my position. And then the boundary says, I don't appreciate this. I don't want you doing this again. Especially if you have to continue to work with someone. Okay, then let's talk about personal. If you're divorced, this is actually a huge one. And let's say it was not a fun ride towards the end of the marriage and throughout the divorce. It is really important it is very challenging to set new boundaries with your former partner because they're used to you in a certain way. Maybe you're subservient, maybe you've catered to their demands, maybe you overgave, and now you're like, there's this new me. And this is what I've done. I only want to text. Unless I'll get on the phone if it's in a crisis about our kids. And I set the precedent up front. I said, listen, and even though you're divorced, they can still treat you the same. You need to set some boundaries. I only want to communicate when it's about logistics about the children or about activities. I don't want to talk about anything else. I prefer text. I even have this in my legal docs. Text is the main form of communication. I don't barely do email, but text. And I will get on the phone if it's an emergency or, that's it. And only about logistics with the kids, whether it's activities, whether it's school, whether it's picking up, that's about it. I'm not talking about anything else. And tone. That's the other thing. So that's actually content. And then tone. If the brash and the accusation and the negative and the toxicity is coming at me, my response is, I'm only going to respond when you change your tone. It's very derogative, and I would say no response is a response. When you change your tone, then I'm going to start talking to you. You have to start doing that. And unfortunately, sometimes the tone you're used to, it's a trigger for you. It's so upsetting to you that it sets you off. And it's funny, my therapist said this, no response is a response. So when you get the toxicity in the text or whatever it is, email, you just have to go and meditate. Okay? You need to not react. You need to go for a walk. You need to go in nature. You need to go and meditate. I've said this numerous times to so many friends of mine. It's called managing the trigger. It's a trigger. And quite honestly, some of these people who are doing like an old partner or a husband or a wife, ex-wife or a husband, ex-husband or ex-wife or whatever, or even like a former friend or whatever, that's different. If you have to still engage with them, their high, I learned this, and this is from therapy, their high, especially if they're narcissists, their high is your reaction. So it's like a drug. So when you react, they are satisfied. They got their fix. You need to recognize that when you are triggered by a toxic text, and that's why I keep it to text, guys. Don't get on the phone, especially in the beginning. They want you to go down that tornado of reaction because that's their fix. So, no, as my therapist said, no response is a response. And then you come back and say, I don't appreciate the tone. I will not respond to this tone. You need to change your tone and then I'll respond. And you start training the old dog new tricks. The new trick is you set the precedent, the kind boundary. The tone is not appropriate. I'm not responding to this. You know, you're going to have, and the thing is, it's hard in the beginning and you are triggered. It's going to take at least 6 months. Guess what? They catch on. And then they stop. It goes away. It disintegrates. So it's training an old dog, new tricks. Anyway, I hope that's helpful. I'm going to do cards, but the bottom line is setting kind boundaries in your personal or professional relationships is critical to your own personal health and professional career success. I'm going to say that again. Setting kind boundaries in both your personal and professional relationships is critical to your own health and your career success. I talk about this day in and day out with so many people that are asking for career advice, so many founders that I'm working with, so many other fund managers, especially female fund managers dealing with mansplaining and all different types of challenges that we face entering male-dominated industries. It's really, really important to set kind boundaries. The other thing that I was talking about the other day with some female founders and fund managers on a call is when we're in male-dominated spaces and we're triggered or we're accused of something or something just inappropriate happens, the best way to handle and to diffuse the tension in the room is through humor. You can do that. This is a lot of seasoned female executive like myself and other women that I know that are in corporate or in male-dominated spaces. The best way to handle mansplaining or any kind of toxic male culture publicly is through light humor. A, you call them out. B, everyone's laughing. Best way to handle it. Let's do cards. I always end True North with some really funny cards. And eventually I'm going to interview some people on this podcast. I hope that was helpful. I really think it's one of the most critical things for us as in our personal and professional lives is setting kind boundaries. And I hope that everyone can. Before I go move into the cards and before I leave for the day, I want to point out this amazing book. And I don't know if I mentioned it before, but usually I like to bring out a book every time I do one of my podcasts, a book that I've read or that inspires me. Typically it's tied to the subject of the day, but this one could or could not be. It's a New York Times bestseller. It's entitled In the Company of Women, Inspiration and Advice from Over 100 Makers, Artists, and Entrepreneurs. Unbelievable. If you feel like you need inspiration, any of the female founders, female people out there, this is a great book. I just turned into this, and it just highlights a woman, a founder, a leader, and a little bit of background about her. It says her quote here: "I admire authenticity and conviction. Martine Rose, fashion designer, London, England. What did you want to be when you were a child?" I think this is I want to do a coloring book like this for young girls to talk about overcoming adversity and resilience and grit when they were little girls. She says here, "I loved dancing and performing when I was a child and distinctly remember demanding my family watch me dance. But I actually became shyer and more self-conscious as I got older. Fashion didn't manifest as anything distinct until much later." It's interesting. It's really interesting. I think a lot of us go through that. But this is a great book. I highly recommend it. The author is Grace Bonet, founder of Design Sponge. It's a great book. It's a great book. I haven't read the whole thing, but I read snippets when I feel like I need inspiration. Anyway, let's do cards. I hope everybody's having a great Thursday. Okay, first question. What change would you most like to make for your health? You know what? I need to set up, I want weekly, I actually need to find out. I want weekly floating. I want to float weekly at my local spa. I do Epsom salt floating. I need to set daily, weekly, I want weekly floating and weekly sport massage. Daily, I need to have a salad a day. I'm trying to do that. I will do that after this for dinner. And drink more water, 6 liters of water a day. I want to meditate at least once a day. And that's without my phone. And I do want to put my phone down more. I think it's distracting. I think it wastes a lot of time. And I want to go on a like a spa trip once a month for a weekend at a different location. Yes. Yes. I have a lot of things. I love investing in my health, mental, physical, emotional health. If you could have a picnic on any mountaintop in the world, where would you go? I don't think this is possible, but you know where I want to go? I don't know why this came up. There's a legend in Mexico City. If you fly into Mexico City, it's not a mountain, it's volcanoes. If you fly into Mexico City, first of all, there's smog everywhere. You can see it when you fly in. It's disgusting. But I mean, it's getting better, but it's still there. And you can smell it's all over in your face when you go in. But anyway, I hate to be negative. When you fly in, there's a legend. There's two mountains. There's a shape of a princess, of a woman's body, like her silhouette. And there's the legend. I forgot the name. Somebody in one of my family is going to totally be like, what do you mean you don't know the legend? Is it Chapultepec? No, it's not Chapultepec. Teotihuacan or something. There's a legend of a woman and a man. He fell in love with her. They were like star-crossed lovers or something like that. And she ended up dying or something, and he laid down and died with her. I know it's a legend. I would want to do it there because it's like a love story. I don't know exactly what it is, but if you ever fly into Mexico City, you could see the silhouette of a woman's body, and then there's a little like small volcano next to it, and that's the man. I can't remember. It's famous. It's famous. I always loved that, but I would want to have lunch there. I don't think you can. They're volcanoes, not mountains. When the phone rings, do you generally experience excitement or dread? I mean, typically excitement. Nobody calls people anymore. People just text. I like phone calls. I want more phone calls. I like phone calls. How would your mother, best friend, and last boyfriend each describe you? Okay, my mother would say I'm determined. I think she'd say she's proud of me. I will say that. Determined, stubborn, and she'd be proud of me. I think she would say that. My best friend. I have a couple of best friends. Badass, definitely. Female friends. They'd say I'm a badass. It's true. I am. And the last boyfriend, he would say he's a nice guy. He's a lot of, hopefully he's healed from a lot of his past, but he's a nice man. He would say inspirational and loving. Definitely. Inspirational and loving. That's what he would say. Next, how would you improve shoes? I mean, I said this the other day on Twitter. Somebody needs to I need a shoe designer that invents a sexy heel that's not the heel that you wear with your outfit. It's the traveling heel. It looks hot. You can wear it in the airport. It looks good with any outfit. It's not the main heel, and it kind of fits into a compartment that fits in your purse for travel. You know what I'm saying? It's like they got to be slipper-like, but they have to look really good. like stiletto heels, not conservative and Taylor heels, like stiletto heels. Does one of your parents need more time to themselves than the other? Yeah, my dad. My dad, what time is it? I gotta go. My dad is the epitome of an introvert, and he has his routine, and he won't let anyone, he's got his own office, home office. He listens to opera, he watches sports. He doesn't care. There's no wavering. My dad. Yep. Definitely. Next. Okay, this is the girl power one, and I'm going to leave. I didn't even know how to pronounce this. Isatu Sise. She founded the Angel Recycling and Income Generation Group to mobilize the women in her village in Gambia to do two things: reduce the amount of air and ground pollution from plastic waste, and two, create a source of income for themselves and their families. It's a great idea. She taught women to upcycle plastic bags and make them into beautiful, durable, useful items like purses, floor mats, and lifelong used shopping bags. So when it's interesting, my startup, female founder community called Blazing Babes, which was launched 7 years ago, we help female founders scale their startups, small businesses, brick and mortar, tech, doesn't matter, any type of businesses. We've helped hundreds of female founded startups scale through advisory, workshops, what have you. We're also a B Corp, so we give back. We gave back and raised up almost $10,000 to a Syrian refugee camp in on the Greek islands. This was 2017. We discovered that one of the seamstress, it was a male seamstress. I don't know how they're called. I don't know what they're called. Was collecting, as the refugees came from Syria, they're burning homes in Syria across the Aegean Sea and landing, they were coming in blow-up rafts and landing on the Greek islands. They would rip off their life vests and throw them. There's pictures on, if you Google it, there's pictures of piles of life vests, all different colors, mostly orange and black and whatever. He would take some of the life vests and repurpose them and make bags, messenger bags. So I actually have them. I should have brought it. I'll bring it tomorrow. Amazing, cool messenger bags. So our organization bought several of them and auctioned them off at a black tie event and raised money for the Syrian refugees. And it's great. I mean, they say like safe passage and supporting a great cause. But again, repurposing, especially when there's meaning behind it, I think is a great idea. So let's do the quote. What change has your family made to reduce your impact on the environment? My son made me get a recycling bin, which I know everyone does have it. It was taking me forever. You try to reuse bags, grocery bags. Sometimes we could do more. My son also wants us to buy a Jeep Wrangler that's electric for our house when we buy a second house. He does not want to use gas. He's the stickler in the family. Anyway, I hope that is helpful. I hope that everybody sets kind boundaries with old friends, old family. It allows you to have a happier lifestyle, happier career success, and it's not a mean thing by setting kind boundaries. It's actually, typically, most people will respect you even more when you set kind boundaries with people, and then they'll know your limitations. Later, guys. Have a great day. Bye.